Like a lot of people, I've dreamed at different times in my life about moving someplace else for a change of scenery, for more excitement, more opportunity, for a place where I thought it might just be easier to make a better life. And at some points, it was for a way to make an escape. My first move was when I was 18, just weeks after high school graduation. The town where I grew up, in suburban Washington, D.C., had a majority black population, housing was stable, education was accessible, incomes were among the highest in the country. And I had to get out of there. It's because this was a place where everything looked so good on the surface. Everyone put a lot of effort into making sure of that. Private school tuition, new cars, 5-bedroom homes, manicured front lawns. But when you looked inside those homes and into the families living in them, there was so often something so different beneath the surface. Profound challenges for the kids growing up there. Absentee parents, broken relationships, emotional neglect, severe depression. It's certainly what my house there looked like inside too. Growing up, the darkness in our place, a darkness brought on by a parent's PTSD that was grown into a giant by silence and time. It made me realize that if I was going to have a future where I could thrive both personally and professionally, I would need to live far enough away that I'd only be expected home for brief occasional visits. I needed to make sure that I'd be able to stay gone so that I could get to have a different life from my parents. One that didn't just look good on the surface, but that actually felt good and gave me fulfillment, peace of mind, and increasing freedom from the powerful anxiety brought on by the experiences of my formative years. That plan to make my escape, that's how I got into the work that I do, creating communication strategies for high-dollar development and infrastructure projects in cities throughout the country. I'm a former executive at one of the nation's largest utilities, now turned consultant and trusted partner to some of the nation's largest engineering firms, utilities, and developers. What do these job titles even really mean? On the outside, I feel like maybe they sound pretty good in most people's assessment. Like I've done a decent job of climbing the career ladder and reaping the rewards. But just like those houses where I grew up with the nice cars and the manicured lawns, there's actually more to why I do this when you look inside. A big part of my work is focused on aligning major infrastructure projects with project-related programs and outcomes that improve quality of life through things like more affordable utilities, better jobs, education and training opportunities, and beautified neighborhoods. I do what I do because I understand how it substantially benefits us all to ensure that we use the major economic drivers delivered by these projects to help communities leverage all the ways they can make more money or save more money and chip away at the equity gap. While my work certainly does help design and construction join with ways for people to improve their lives, what truly pushes me is my recognition of how fundamentally important it is for each of us to have a sense of control over our lives. It's that control that allows us to feel free and to be ourselves, to make our own choices, and to find our unique purposes. For me, it all started with my realization that by performing well in school, I could have a pretty good degree of control over my ability to live far enough away. Through putting all my focus into getting really good grades, I would make my way to college. And by getting good grades in college, I'd make sure I could stay there. Malcolm X is known for having said, "A man who believes in freedom will do anything under the sun to acquire or preserve his freedom." And I did. I put in work. I did the studying, I wrote the papers, I earned the test scores, did the extracurriculars, paid for the applications, and wrote the essays to get myself on the path to freedom. I landed a scholarship at Morgan State University in Baltimore. It was at least an hour away from my parents' place, so that was a very good start on my plan. But given the critical nature of my mission, I couldn't just rest on those laurels. Surviving away from home meant finding ways to make sure this new freedom would stick. At Morgan, I became an award-winning editor of the campus newspaper. My newspaper work landed me an internship as a staff writer for the Baltimore Sun. So this meant that I got to stay away from home every summer too. The internship landed me some unique job opportunities, including the ones that eventually led to my work in water utilities. It's that experience that became the springboard for the company I now own and the work I get to do around the United States. So I never did have to go back to my parents' house. Back in the early days of my Leave Home for Good plan, I had been the kid who always got asked to read my essays to the class or to enter them in contests or to tutor other students on their writing. I could readily analyze complex novels or interpret abstract poetry, but I also had a talent in math and science and excelled in subjects like physics and calculus. As it turned out, this proved to be a pretty distinctive set of abilities that was quite attractive to Philadelphia's water department. When we met, the utility CEO wanted to hire me because he said I had a rare ability to comprehend the very technical details of water treatment operations, but I could also explain these details very plainly to non-technical audiences. In other words, I could speak engineer. This skill set allowed me to rise to become the youngest and the first Black head of government affairs in the utility's 220-year history. In that role, I got a chance to learn so much of what I know about utilities and infrastructure and the vital puzzle pieces that make up the giant multi-million-dollar projects that keep the civilized world running. It's through the ways that this work required me to engage with elected officials, community members, and heads of government that I came to understand that while budgets and equipment and timelines are definitely important parts of these big projects, a chief consideration among it all is acknowledging and addressing the deep connection between the big projects and an essential human need of the people who will live with them. It's a need that I related to intimately. That need for control and for the freedom that comes with it. Everybody wants to be free, it's natural. But freedom can so often be surprisingly inaccessible because of invisible barriers erected by our home lives or our health or economic circumstances, our lack of knowledge, or our places in oppressive systems. Freedom is no doubt the fundamental concept of what human existence is about, of what America is about. And as humans go, there's probably no place where that idea carries more weight than right here in Philadelphia, the very birthplace of liberty. About 6 years ago, when I was still employed in the utilities industry, I got a call from an elected official's office after they'd received a number of complaints about the fencing that was just put up around an active construction site. It was where a vital stormwater management project was underway. The project was going to do a lot of good. It would prevent sewer overflows, which prevents flooding in homes and pollution in local waterways. It would also add green space to a neighborhood that could really benefit from it. But putting fencing around this site would also restrict access to a heavily relied upon community rec center where people took classes, got computer access, and sent their kids for safe haven after school. And to make matters even more complicated, I realized that the fencing had gone up the day before Election Day in the mayor's race, and this rec center was a local polling place. So obviously, I had to jump in right away. Because their sort of work focuses on the site, the materials, and the very technical aspects of the job, those human details, which are so vital to the lives and the personal and even constitutional freedoms of people living in the neighborhood, well, Those details just aren't the kinds of things that always make it onto the radars of every engineering firm or construction crew. So this was an experience that was key in giving me the ability to recognize the power and, frankly, the imperative of connecting big projects to the real people that they impact. It's also why the mission of my company, Say Do Strategies, is right there in its name. Because we're passionate about helping the owners of these projects find ways to add value to the lives of the people living around them, and then to help these owners ensure that they do what they say they will. In this, the age of the pandemic, the concept of connecting big projects to the human need for control and freedom resonates even much more deeply. Being stuck in our homes for weeks and then months, not being able to hug our loved ones or come and go as we please, watching death tolls climb, unsure of what to do. It all most certainly traumatized us. Experts in mental and behavioral health will tell you that when a person's traumatized, they develop deep feelings of insecurity about their physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. Today, this uncertainty has also extended to feeling uncertain about personal finances, about governments, corporations, institutions, and about the future in general. So imagine what happens when you try and successfully complete a major project that's digging up ground and disrupting people's lives without ever taking into account the needs of the human beings naturally yearning for freedom, working through their traumas, and also at home, looking out their windows, watching, examining, and feeling uncertain about your entire day's work. I'll tell you what happens. People's trauma and uncertainty shuts major projects down. As utilities and developers and other big project owners, your ability to work and grow is directly predicated on your ability to actively help preserve the freedom of the people living in the communities where your projects take place. The very same idea is true on smaller scales too. 2 months ago, my husband and I were house hunting, and I have to share that this was one of the most frustrating experiences of my life. Throughout every single part of the process, it feels like you have almost no control over this big step that you've decided on. It starts with securing a mortgage loan. Whose idea was it to make the rules that lenders should use the lowest of your 3 credit scores? If I'd had control, you can guess which number we would have had them pick. Or maybe the loss of control actually starts with the fact that you're not in a socioeconomic position to have the extra $400,000 or $500,000 just lying in wait to drop on a home. There's that wealth gap thumbing its nose again. Then there were the stern warnings we got from our friends to remove all of our family photos to help ensure that our house would get fair appraisals and offers. As I took down the pictures, I got teary-eyed about having to strip our very existence from our own home. I guess I could say it felt like a trauma. But I did it though, because I wanted some control in making sure that our place would interest buyers and please the banks. The long and short of what I'm getting at is whether it's a multi-year master plan, a wastewater pipeline, or even house hunting for a piece of the American dream. These concepts of infrastructure, development, and real estate are directly connected paths to greater wealth, and thereby to greater control and freedom in life. So owners and influencers in these spaces have to provide opportunities to share some of this control. If they expect to keep moving on their pipelines, they'd better demonstrate that they've considered the people. That means doing things like communicating early and often on topics of construction site safety, community benefits of projects, or information on who people can contact if they're not satisfied with the work they're seeing going on outside of their windows. Otherwise, human needs will not be ignored. A man who believes in freedom will do anything under the sun to acquire or preserve his freedom. The key is give humans some control so they don't become compelled to do anything under the sun to take away yours.